Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Booktube Chicks Book Club for July. We did have to postpone the live show by a week, but we are here and we are ready to talk about Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a great book, I think. So I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys. As always, I am here with Kathleen from For the Love of Books and Desiree from Libri Labra. And for the next hour or so, we are going to be chatting about this book. If you have never been to one of our live shows before, basically what happens is the first 5 to 10 minutes are spoiler free. And then we're going to go into a spoiler discussion, chatting all about this book. So before we get started, we are going to go ahead and do just a really quick synopsis of the book. Basically, this book follows four famous siblings. They are all the children of this famous singer in the 80s, and it follows in both a past and a present timeline. So in one timeline, we are following Nina, who is the eldest Rivas child, and basically what's going on in her life as an adult, and her siblings' lives, because they're all, I believe, like 20 and up. And then in the past timeline, we are following Mick Rivas, who's their father, and when he meets their mother is when it starts. And eventually the timelines meet, and there is this really big party that happens every year, and basically it's just a book about a party, really, and how it changes people's lives. So let's go ahead and start with our initial thoughts. Who would like to start with what they thought about Malibu Rising?
I can go first, I guess. Let me just say that I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've read 3 of her books, right? I've read The Seven Husbands, I read Daisy Jones and the Six, and then there was a short story that she wrote that I don't remember the name of that I read. I have enjoyed all of her stories. Seven Husbands is one of my favorite books of all time.
We also read Forever Interrupted.
Was that it?
That wasn't the short story, but that was another book that we read.
Was that for book club?
Yeah.
I didn't read that one, I don't think.
We did it for book club.
Did we?
Yeah.
I think you read
it. Yeah.
Now I'm not sure. Oh, okay, well.
I'll look into that. But anyway, I enjoyed her stories. And so I kind of knew going into this book that I was going to enjoy it. It's not my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book. So far, nothing has topped The Seven Husbands. And I feel like a lot of people might feel that way. I enjoyed... There were certain things about the story I didn't like. For example, June, she's the mother of the kids whose lives we're following, and she frustrated me in some of the decisions, and we'll talk about that later because it's spoilery. But for the most part, that was the one thing that annoys, that these characters sometimes they made bad decisions. But overall, I liked the storyline sometimes. Other books that I've read where they jump in timeline, I have not enjoyed, but I personally thought that Taylor Jenkins Reid did a good job. I was never confused on what was happening, and I was never confused on who I was following, because I was so invested in the characters. I have read a review where someone read this book and didn't enjoy the book because she felt there were too many characters. I can see why, but personally, I was so invested in their lives that I kind of didn't have a hard time following who I was reading about at the moment. So I did end up giving this book 4 stars. It's between a 4 and a 4.5 right now. I'm just going to leave it at 4. But I did really like it, and I think it was a great addition to the Taylor Jenkins Reid world, her book collection. I think she did a really good job. She has a way of writing that really kind of immerses you in the story. It really you get really invested in the characters' lives. So I'll highly recommend anybody who's interested in this book.
I really enjoyed it. I know something that Taylor Jenkins Reid does really well for me is just write celebrities and that celebrity life, right? Just like the glitz and the glamour and the drugs and the rock and roll and whatever else happens. I feel like she just writes that really, really authentically. I enjoyed the siblings. I enjoyed everything that was happening between them. I mean, at times the drama felt a lot. It was just a lot. Like I had to keep pausing it, and I would like text Chloe and be yelling at Chloe about things that were happening. But my only con, I would say, is that I felt like she abruptly switched the way she was writing, because in the beginning we were following the siblings, we were following Mick Riva as he met June, and there was 2 timelines happening, and I was like fully invested in that. And then it just went to like part 2, and that switched over to like these vignettes that were happening every hour, and that switch up just kind of brought me a little bit out of the story, and I felt it took some time for me to get back into it, but I was still very invested and like interested in what was happening. And though there were a lot more characters in the second half that didn't quite appear in the first half or weren't as relevant, so it did feel like there were a lot more introduced. But overall, I think Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing is still incredible, and I gave it 4 stars.
So I also rated this book 4 stars. I didn't have, I don't want to say I didn't have any expectations going into this book, because obviously Taylor Jenkins Reid has given us 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and that is such an amazing book. And I feel like I wasn't as invested with Daisy Jones. So I wasn't sure what to expect with this one, because I've had such varying opinions on her previous work. But I ended up really enjoying this book, and I gave it a 4 stars. I did listen to the audiobook, and I highly recommend that if you're going to read this book, to use an audiobook, because the narrator is fantastic. She does amazing with all of the voices and differentiating the characters, which I thought was great. And I believe it's actually the same narrator that has done Daisy Jones and Evelyn Hugo as well. So I highly recommend this book and others in the audiobook format. I would also like to say I was a little hesitant with because this is a historical fiction, and I'm not normally a fan of historical fiction. It's not something that I immediately gravitate to. But this one I think was done really well, and I enjoyed it. I think Evelyn Hugo still reigns supreme out of all of them, but I was very pleasantly surprised with this book, and I really enjoyed it. I guess on that note, we will go into spoilers. So where would we like to start with Malibu Rising? I know this book was a lot.
I don't even know where to start.
I agree. Well, here, how about we talk about we'll talk about them as timeline. So let's go ahead and start with the past timeline.
June frustrated me. It was so obvious he was never going to stop, and she still went back to him. And the fact that I can't put myself in her situation, because I haven't had someone cheat on me like that. I have had someone cheat on me, and it was devastating, but I learned my lesson from that. The fact that she went back to him after he humiliated her, after he broke her heart, and she, even the second time that he left her, she was still hopeful. Like when she got wind that he divorced again, she said I remember perfectly, she was waiting for him to call. And I'm like, have you not learned your lesson the first 2 times? Like, do you not ever hear fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me? Like literally, he left her twice, and she was still waiting for him this 3rd time around. And I'm like, she frustrated me, and it was the one reason why I knocked a star off of this book, because she frustrated the hell out of me. She could have done so much with her life, and yet she wasted away waiting for a guy that was never going to stay.
I feel like, you know, the fact that they had kids together kind of impacts things. It's heartbreaking to be cheated on, but if you're single, I think it's a little bit easier not to want to try to make amends or make things work, because I think it shifts. Your mind shifts from, oh, is this good for me, to what's best for our kids, right? And I think someone's always going to want the other parent to be involved in their kids' lives. Obviously, he eventually showed that he couldn't do that, or he wasn't able to do that, or whatever the case was, but I don't blame June for wanting that.
No, sorry, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. The second time, I understand. When he came back the first time and she forgave him, I understood, because again, just like you said, they have kids, but he left her a second time. And on the, like, when he divorced, this perfectly, I remember how frustrated I was with her on the third, like, he left her the second time and he got married, and he divorced from that marriage, and she was waiting for him to call. And I'm like, no, like you gave him a chance. You gave him multiple chances, because he didn't cheat on you on just those times. He cheated you on you multiple times, and she still wanted him to come back. And I don't know. That was just like the one frustrating part about this book for me.
I will say following their story, their love story, I really fell in love with it. And even though I kind of had a sense of what direction it was going to end up in as far as their marriage, I fell really hard for that storyline and that timeline. And I agree with what Kat is saying, that she was very frustrating in the sense where it's like, okay, you let him come back one time and he left again. Don't let him come back a second time. Like, I find that to be very frustrating as well. And I feel like even with the kids involved, not to I don't completely disagree with what you're saying, Desiree, but with the kids involved, I think there's a certain point where she just needed to realize, like, he doesn't care about anything except himself.
And the thing is, like, when he came back around the first time, when he came back and she forgave him, got married the second time, the book goes specifically into details that Nina at first was very hesitant about letting him in. You know, she was very hesitant about trusting him. And he went out of his way to make sure that Nina loved him and Nina trusted him. And he said that he promised Nina that he was going to stay forever. There's a quote, I will not try to find it right now, but he does tell Nina that he plans on staying forever. And the book says not even a year later, he was divorcing her again. So not only did he break June's heart a second time, well, multiple times, but he was divorcing June a second time, despite promising that he was a changed man and he was going to stay. He broke this little girl's heart. And I feel like June should have opened her eyes, because he's now brought the children into his bad decisions and her bad decisions. And the fact that after, again, he divorced the wife that he left her for, and it seemed like she was still willing to forgive him. For me, it just seems like June wasn't thinking correct. She wanted this perfect happy family. She had this image of this perfect happy family, and maybe when he had come back for that 1 year, she experienced it and she wanted to experience it again, and that's why she was so willing to forgive him. The last time, I felt like she needed to take the emotion and become more logical. It's like, this is not healthy for my kids anymore, and he's not healthy for my kids anymore. So I just
think it's interesting that the frustration lies with June and not the fact that Mick Riva was obviously an asshole. Like,
well, yeah, no, but the thing is, Mick Rivas he always showed who he was. He was an asshole, and he was a cheating asshole. He never, like, I kept reading this book, and there was never a moment I never knew that he wasn't gonna go back to what he always did, which was cheat and hurt his family. He was always that one guy. He never pretended. Well, he did pretend to be otherwise, but I was never fooled by him. So the fact that, yes, my frustration is gonna lie with June, because I just wanted her to open her eyes and be like, listen, see what I'm seeing, and that this guy does not deserve you. It's like, move on, find another guy, find a better man. If you need a man, just find a better man.
You know,
Do
obviously
better for your kids.
cheating is bad and everything. You know, I don't condone
Yeah,
cheating,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like I don't think we could like talk about it in a vacuum. Like I think the time period also has to be considered, because it was like, wasn't it like the 50s and the 60s? Like
Yes.
the marriage, the divorce rate was so much lower back then because women stayed with men who cheated. Women stayed because they had to. Women stayed because the men supported them. So it was like, I feel like things like that were kind of a lot more common for the time period. It was just something that you kind of dealt
But the
with within
thing
the
is,
family.
I understand what you're saying. Sorry, I think we're gonna go on a circle here. I understand what you're saying, and I agree. Yes, it was a lot more because women didn't have as many opportunities as they have now. But the fact is, he left her, so there was no like staying for the money. In fact, when he left her the second time, he never gave her any child support at all, and um, so if he had stayed with her married and he was like cheating behind her back, I would understand why she would stay. But he did leave her and he didn't give her any child support. And but again, she was still willing to forgive him. I don't know. I guess again, this book it was just like a moment that I just wanted to like tear the book apart and be like, June, like stop. But yeah.
I'm just thinking about the fact that I saw somewhere in a review somewhere where somebody was like, this was like a soap opera. And it was, because he wasn't the only one cheating. There were other people cheating in other relationships. And it was like, you know, I'm texting Chloe like, I hate men. I hate men. I hate men. Because like I was just so angry that was like, it was so expected that the men would do that. And not only did they cheated, they went with the other person, and then they were like, why'd I do this? And then they'd go back to whoever it was they were with originally. And sometimes it was multiple times. And like,
yeah. And I guess also I wasn't just frustrated with June. I also felt really bad for her. I really wanted her to have a happy ending. When she lost her parents, I felt so devastated for her because they were like her one support that she had. Like her mom, when her mom died, they were her one support, and at the end they died and she didn't have anything. She had like these 4 kids that she had to take care of. She was now the one person responsible. She didn't have anyone to fall back on. So I truly felt horrible for June, and I really wanted her to have a happy ending. And maybe that's why I'm so frustrated with the decisions that June made, because again, she couldn't let go of Mick. And I think that if she did, maybe even with the opportunities being less for her, maybe she could have done something, turned it around, and had a happier ending than what what ended up happening, which was she drank herself to death basically. And it was just like June's storyline was just one that was frustrating and also really really sad at the end. And I wish she had a happier ending.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are y'all's thoughts on on her ending, essentially, of like, was it expected? Did you think it was gonna happen? I feel like I saw it coming, but I was still really upset when it actually happened.
Yeah.
I don't remember how old Nina was. I was pretty upset.
She was 17.
I think, like, for me, as someone who, was the child of an addict and was also the oldest in the family, like I'm the oldest of 6, I related so much to what Nina was going through and having to take care of her siblings and like just everything else. Like I felt like that was so well written to me, especially how they all connected, because like technically my siblings are like half siblings, but we never ever ever refer to each other that way. We've never treated each other that way. And like, HUD was kind of like a half sibling, but they never ever thought of each other that way. And I just like, it just felt so so personal, and like, I don't know, it just really resonated with me. And I love how the siblings were written.
Yeah, and they actually mentioned that, like, I don't know, it's towards the beginning of the book where they mention that Hud is half a sibling, but they don't really refer him to that he's a full sibling. And I thought that was nice. And I agree with you. I think Nina, probably my favorite character in this whole book. She's just the responsibilities that she took, and the fact, one thing that I remember about when reading the book, when she got offered to do the modeling, and they did a calendar shoot, and I remember specifically it was July, because we just ended July, and they had this photo of her that basically was very revealing, and she was surprised, and the fact that she accepted it, she was extremely uncomfortable with it. She was not okay with it, but she accepted it because it brought in the money. And I felt so bad for her that she had to feel violated in order to make sure that her siblings are taken care of. And so I guess in a lot of ways, I wish June was a little bit more like Nina. She had a little bit more strength in her. And I'm not saying that June didn't. June, she, for everything that's happened to her, like, she went back to the restaurant to work because she realized, that Mick wasn't going to provide child support, and she had to do something because she had 4 mouths to feed. So in a lot of ways, June was a strong character, and she did what she needed to do for her kids, even though she was like falling apart inside. But in a lot of ways, I also wish that June had some of the strength that Nina did, because Nina did a lot of good things, and I respect Nina for the things that she did for her siblings to make sure that they stayed together and that they were fed and healthy. And yeah.
Well, I think to me, like, the ultimate sign of June's strength was literally that Hud was dropped on her doorstep. The way that happened, like, there was no lead up to that. There was it was just like, here, this is your husband's baby. I don't want it. Take it. And she had to deal with the fact that not only she just found out that her husband was cheating on her, but now there's a whole ass other baby that she has to take care of. Like, but she did it. She did it, and she loved him like her own. And, like, the way the siblings treated each other is evidence of that. So, like, to me, that is like the ultimate.
I agree. The thing is, I think she started off really strong, and I agree. That's a great example of June being an extremely strong character, because she could have easily been like, I'm not taking care of this other woman's children, like this child that you betrayed me, that the result of your betrayal. But she chose to love him, and she even says, I'm going to love you because you deserve, because you're a child. But I think what Mick did to her kind of broke her down. And in the end, she was just like a version of herself, like a shadow of who she used to be. But
I mean, that's totally what happens when you are not able to establish boundaries with someone that violates you in that way. Like, you start to lose pieces of yourself. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah. I guess Nina's strength comes from June, because what June did for Hud was really nice too. And I like do we ever, this is random, but do we ever hear back from June, Hud's mom? Like, does she just,
so. I don't remember.
Just that one scene?
It was that one scene, and that was it. I don't remember ever hearing about her again.
Okay. And I remember that scene, and that June was more, she kind of like, she got stuck on the fact that the girl just dropped off the baby, but she never made any mention of the fact that, I slept with your husband.
Right? I mean, I don't know what the quote was, but I remember reading that, because she was like, wow, she just cheated with my husband. And that was so much of an afterthought that she didn't even apologize. She didn't even mention it. It was just like, here's the baby, you can have it.
Yeah. And I'm just like,
and it's like insulting.
Yeah.
One of the things that had me on the edge of my seat was actually the situation with Hud. Like, I felt like I just kept wanting to hear how that was going to play out, because you knew it wasn't going to, like, go well. like he was obviously, like, really tense about the fact that he had started dating his brother's ex-girlfriend, and then, like, he messed it up like, by being like, oh, can I date her? Bro,
I mean, I get what he did because he chickened out the very last second, and he's like, maybe if I ask him permission and he says yes, it will be all okay. And then it just blew up in his face. uh,
But I really liked him as a character. I felt like he was really sweet. And even though
Yeah.
he was like having a hard time admitting what he was doing, like his heart was in the right place and he was really genuine about how he felt. And, you know, he cared for
yeah.
Ashley, I think was her name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there were a couple of parts where I was like, oh my God, I just paused it. I was like, Chloe, tell me this doesn't happen. And she was like, keep listening. I really thought like there was a part where Jay and Lara, I think, go to HUD's truck. And I was like, if he finds HUD and Ashley in there, I'm going to lose my mind. He didn't though, but I mean,
I
still
was thinking that
discovered
too.
anyway.
Yeah, I was thinking that too when the situation was unfolding. I kind of liked.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I don't get why Jay was against it. He literally said that Ashley didn't mean anything to him. So why was it so bad for HUD to go like?
Because it was a betrayal. It was a
but the girl didn't
betrayal.
mean anything to him.
Yeah, but
if it was a
matter.
girlfriend that he had, you know, that he was in love with, that he had been in love with, and they broke up and they had that nasty breakup, we'll get it. But
yeah, but
she was just another girl. Like he literally.
But he wasn't mad at Ashley. He was mad at HUD for lying to him.
No, but I get it. But like I mean, like when he asked permission, like when HUD asked permission for Jay, I'm like, why? Why would you say no? Like he literally says she didn't mean anything, and I'm like, does it matter? Let your guy get some with the, you know, go. But I guess I didn't get that one part where when HUD had asked for permission and he said no. I'm like,
maybe this is what bro code is. What was I gonna say? Oh, what did you guys think? Well, actually, no. Let me phrase this. A lot of things that I've heard before reading this was that people didn't like the second half of the book, and I can understand where they're coming from with that. And see, while I was reading this, funny enough, my coworker and I happened to be reading it at the same time. So she was ahead of me, and we were, chatting back and forth about it. And she, agrees that she doesn't like the second half either. I think that the second half with all these random people and seeing all these people it's supposed to represent how this one massive party has changed all these people's lives, and that's why we're seeing like all these individual people, even if it is only for like a page or two. So I kind of wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that because I know a lot of people don't care for the second half of this book.
I feel like I wish I would have had a little bit more warning. Like I heard people review it and they were like, the first half was this and the second half was this, but it still didn't like click in my mind what that meant. And it wasn't until, because I was reading the audiobook for the most part, listening to the audiobook. So I just know at some part I was like, what am I listening to? Who are these people? Like I just kind of got lost when it first switched over. And I lost a bit of interest, but I tried to commit to making sure I was paying attention and, figuring out what the scene was and who was in it. And it just helps you get an idea of like what's really happening in the party, even though some of them are like isolated incidences with people that we don't really care about but yeah, I do think it shows like how meaningful the party was to different people for different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It was a lot different, part 1 and part 2, and there was so much happening, and sometimes it was like I had to flip back and be like, wait, hold on, let me reread this again. But truthfully, I don't know, like I still liked it, I guess you could say. Like I was gonna say I don't understand why people didn't like the second part verse. I understand why they did, but I still enjoyed the book. I still enjoyed the second part. It was just a lot going on and the party kind of really got out of control. And I mean, I really don't have much to say other than that.
I do feel like the second half might have been a little bit stronger, though, if she just pulled back a little bit on the characters. You know, because you still have Casey that shows up, right, and drops this bomb on them in regards to, like, who she thinks her dad is. So that's important. But there was, like, a scene with two people who I think did it in a coat closet or something. It was, like, the waitress with the shrimp. And, like, was that necessary? I don't know. Like, I didn't mind it because that their little piece of slice of, you know, life was enjoyable to read, but they weren't really that important. They never come up again.
Like in the first part, we the entire first part, like the first half of the book, basically was building up to this party, and honestly, I was expecting it to be some like crazy party. I wasn't expecting to be like some kind of like nice cocktail, everybody just mingling, having a nice time, but I thought it was gonna be crazy. And so I get where you're coming from, that it does feel like she went a little bit too much, like she crossed the line on what crazy meant, but I also enjoyed it because I wanted to see how crazy this party was gonna get, you know.
I mean, and I don't remember if you remembered like the vignette with Wendy. Chloe's laughing.
The what? Hold on, no, remind me.
Wendy's a freak. Wendy is a complete freak. I'm sorry. Because Wendy is like, I guess she's like a waitress at the seafood restaurant, and there's a section where we're following her, and she's in the hot tub with these two other guys, and she's like, we're gonna do this, all three of us. Like,
I think I remember that.
Did you say you don't remember that?
No, I said I do remember that.
Okay.
I was gonna say that's like the most memorable part of the second
half. But okay, so we kind of talked about June and like June taking Mick back and all this other stuff. What do you think about the fact that that was somewhat reflected in Nina's life, with having her husband cheat on her, and he was with that other chick, and then he decided to try to come back to Nina, and like even though Nina may not have wanted it, it looked like she was just going to accept it. She was just going to accept with Brandon coming back.
He was a douche because he shouldn't have, in the middle of that party, just been like, please take me back. Right, guys? Tell her to take me back. That was so fucked. But he did it anyway.
Yes, I remember. It's like when people, like when couples, like when a guy decides to propose in public, and the girl, like I've seen so many videos of, I just searched it, of the girls denying, and you can see like the horrified face. She's like, stop, no. And then like she has to reject him. And like, I feel for her so much. Do not do these things in public, because you're literally forcing her hand. Like you're either going to humiliate yourself because she's going to turn you down in public, or she's going to say yes and then turn you down later, you know, in private, be like, I can't marry you, sorry. But I felt so bad for her, like the fact that and I feel like he's manipulative, and he knew he was doing by doing it in public. And I think, I don't remember who mentioned it, but one of the siblings earlier, and I don't remember quite the scene, but I remember he says that June, not necessarily that she's a pushover, but she tends to be a people pleaser. She wants everything to be okay, so she tends to agree to things that make her uncomfortable. So I'm not surprised that she would have taken, I'm not surprised that she considered taking Brandon back, because that's just who she is. She's someone who's willing to make sacrifices for everything to be okay. And even though, yeah, like the parallels between June and Nina, and I'm like, Nina, don't do this. Don't do this.
I found the section with Wendy. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm still laughing about the thing with Wendy. Yes, the parallels were, I mean, I think that Taylor Jenkins Reid did like an amazing job with these parallels, and you know, Nina being a people pleaser, And where's it going? I liked seeing how Nina evolved over the course of 12 hours with this party and with her asshat husband and all of that. I really liked seeing the evolution and how in the end she decided to stick up for herself and not become that person.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that, Nina, you're right. Like, Nina has this great character development within these just few hours. And I remember specifically, like I mentioned, that someone said that she's very much of she doesn't want to like create trouble or problems. Like, for example, like the cleaners came, and then who was it, HUD, that said that even if they didn't do a good job or they forgot to clean this area, she was gonna go and clean it herself. She was gonna do it herself, and she was still gonna tip the cleaners a pretty nice tip, even though they didn't do a thorough job like she wanted. And I'm like, this poor girl, she has so much on her mind. She needs to relax. So at the end, when she actually did something for herself, finally, I was like, oh, she can finally breathe. Like, she's doing something for herself. Even though I wonder, yeah, but with the house burning down, who knows what's gonna happen? Whatever.
Well, with the house burning down, it's funny because I kept wondering, we're seeing how ridiculous and how crazy this party is getting, and I'm like, okay, well, what's going to happen? Like, what's going to be the cause of it burning down? How's this gonna happen? And I remember texting my coworker, and she's like, just wait. But she would send like laughing emojis with it, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And the fact that Mick is leaving and flicks his cigarette and starts this whole thing while I think the comparison to the beginning of the book where he cheats and leaves and becomes the catalyst for spinning their lives out of control also happened with this fire. He's the catalyst for the fire, and he started it, even though he doesn't know he started it. He started the fire. But then at the same time, it was also really convenient because Nina is going to be leaving anyway, and they needed to find an excuse to get her out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it was Brandon's house. So, like, I don't know, it wasn't even her house. Didn't sound like she wanted to stay there anyway.
Like, well, yeah, but you could easily say, as depressing as it is, you could easily say she got on fire.
I was kind of waiting for that part too. I was like, is Nina going to get so upset that she sets Brandon's house on fire? Like, I kind of wanted that to happen. I kind of wanted that to be the thing. Like, it was almost like just a little anticlimactic that it happened the way it happened. But, I think it's a perfect reflection of Mick and how selfish and careless and how much he just doesn't give a shit about anybody else.
I was gonna say that. I was like, yeah, I could see like it would have been more epic if it was Nina who's like, fuck it, I'm gonna burn this entire place down. But the fact that it was Mick who did it just kind of symbolizes his personality, that wherever he goes, he just leaves this trail of destruction behind. So I'm actually in a way glad that it was Mick who was the reason why the house burned down, because it just symbolizes him as a character, that he is a distraction and that he he hasn't changed and that he's never going to change, and that everywhere he goes it all gets destroyed.
Now, I don't know if I missed this or if it just wasn't mentioned. Did they ever mention that he married Evelyn Hugo?
Okay.
Someone said that in the review. So I was like, I was reading the review and someone said, oh, Evelyn Hugo was his third wife. And I was like, wait, where did I miss this? I don't think they ever mentioned her name. I think they might have mentioned like someone famous or an actress and might have described her, and then everybody just made the connection, but I don't think they ever mentioned her name.
Because here's how I found out about this. I was on Taylor Jenkins Reid's Instagram, and I was scrolling back on something, and I saw a photo that was open to, it was Evelyn Hugo book, and it was open to the section that said Gullible McReva or something like that, which it was how she separated like all the husbands. And I was floored because I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember this at all. So then I was talking to Kat and I was talking to my coworker and I was like, guys, we have to reread Evelyn Hugo now.
Wait, obviously. You don't remember? Okay. So like in Evelyn Hugo, this is what I have in my mind, which could be wrong, but I feel like there was a scene, because she wasn't married to him very long, I don't think. But there was a scene where I think they went to Vegas or something and they were in a hotel and something happened.
I think she had, again, we need to reread Evelyn Hugo, but she had a husband that didn't last long. It was literally like a day or two. Or it was a husband that lost interest really quickly because once he really wanted Evelyn, and then once he got her, he got bored. And I think that's the husband. I don't remember what husband number he was though. But I feel
like in the hotel room, he said something to her like really disrespectful and slapped her. And then she was just like, no, F this. And
I don't think
they got a divorce like really, really quick. It only lasted, probably like a couple days.
Are you saying Evelyn and Mick?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was him. Mostly because Mick in this story, remember he was married to Veronica and he cheated on her and she threw a tantrum and she started throwing things at him. And instead of getting angry, it reminded him of his parents and he divorced her immediately. Literally he was so calm. He just called his lawyer right there and then divorced her immediately and left the house. So I don't think that was him. I don't think Mick is the one prone to violence.
No, there was definitely another husband that was like really abusive, but this one, it was it was like a really quick hotel scene. Like that's how long their marriage lasted. It seemed like somebody set it up so that it would be beneficial for both of them because they were both famous or something. I could just be making this whole thing up. I might have to look this up.
No, I remember there was one husband who hit her, and I think I remember her putting makeup on to try to cover up the bruise, but that the marriage didn't last long. But I don't think that was Mick. I think that was someone else. But yeah, we just gotta reread the book to get acquainted with all the 7 husbands again.
I'm really excited to reread Evelyn Hugo now too, because I remember I don't remember this in the book, but my coworker was saying, she said, "Is there a character named Celia St. James?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds familiar." I said, "It's in Evelyn Hugo."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, they're mentioned in this book," but I missed the mention, so I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, there's a connection.
She's in there.
I really like how
she's briefly mentioned, but she's in there.
Very brief.
I think she was mentioned due to rumors, right? They were saying that there were rumors
that she was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones, and this book are all connected. And I was reading an interview with Taylor Jenkins Reid that said, they were like, okay, you've done, the 50 or the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. They said, is your plan to do the 90s next? And she said yes, like that's her next plan. So it's going to form like some sort of like quartet. And even though they're not, they're connected, but they're not connected.
I was going to say, how is Daisy Jones and the Six connected?
Daisy Jones is mentioned in, I think, Evelyn Hugo. It's very brief, but I do remember there is a mention of Daisy Jones in one of the books. Like they're all set in the same universe, but they're not all like super connected.
Yeah, it's like a brief mention here or there to it's kind of like an Easter egg.
It just connects the world. But I'm really excited for this idea of a quartet of, historical fiction, even though I'm not a fan of historical fiction.
Something that I thought was really funny was that the girl who does Daisy Jones in the audiobook was Jennifer Beals, who was the chick from Flashdance.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that, yeah.
And so at the party, I think it was Casey that was like, "Is that the girl from Flashdance in your pool?" And Nina was like, "Yeah, that's Jennifer Beals." And I was like, I just thought it was a funny cameo.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about? I know this book is a lot to pick apart.
Well, the other thing I'll mention, just because we just mentioned her name, but Jennifer Beals is actually working with someone else to be an executive producer on the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo movie or TV show for Freeform. So she's kind of like she's in there.
Oh. That's so bad. Really,
I know
Freeform.
Daisy Jones and Malibu Rising were both picked up by Hulu. So
Daisy Jones is with Amazon.
Oh, well, Malibu Rising something was picked up by Hulu because that was in the interview that I read, and Taylor Jenkins Reid is writing the screenplay, I think, or some of the script.
I definitely saw that she was writing the script for Daisy Jones and the Six, but they're doing it through Reese Witherspoon's company and Amazon. There was like,
sorry. Yeah. Wouldn't it be like it would be such a cool idea though if they did because all these books are in the same universe. If they did a TV show that followed all of these people, kind of like how with Shadow and Bone, you have the timeline with Alina, and then you have the timeline with the Six of Crows characters. Like, what if they did that? But if they did like all of these books, like they had a.
I'm not sure I would like that because it's an awful lot of characters, and like I understand why they did it with Six of Crows and the original trilogy because it's just. But I don't know. I'm not entirely sure I would like that.
There's another show like that too that my mom watches. I'm trying to remember what it is. I don't know. I'll think on that.
So I'm just looking at the things that I highlighted, and now I'm like, why did I highlight this? But it says, what Nina loved about her hometown was how ants found their way to your kitchen counters. Pelicans sometimes shit on the ledge of your deck. Clumps of horse manure sat along the sides of unpaved roads, left there by neighbors riding their horses to the market. I don't know. I have no idea why I was like, let me highlight that. Hold on. Okay, then I have fate trips up sometimes. That's the conclusion HUD had come to. It's how he made sense of a lot of things that had happened in his life. Whatever hand was guiding him guided everyone towards a certain future. There's no way it could work without error. Sometimes the wrong brother meets the girl first. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. HUD and Ashley, they were simply correcting fate. Which I thought was, I guess, interesting that he looked at it that way. And then I have something highlighted here about Kit, because Kit was an interesting character, which we didn't really talk about. But Kit decided to put on a dress. And I think it was Jay that said to her, since when do you wear dresses? He said the second he saw her. And she was like, ugh. Kit said, frowning, how were you supposed to change in ways both big and small when your family was always there to remind you of exactly the person you apparently signed an ironclad contract to be? And I thought that was cool because, like, yeah, how are you going to change if everybody's going to be like, you don't do that. You don't ever act like that. You don't ever talk like that. On page 80, I have a quote here that says, June continued to plead to no avail, but the truth was she was only a little surprised. She was a woman, after all, living in a world created by men, and she had long known that assholes protect their own. They are faithful to no one, but surprisingly protective of each other.
Oh, I remember that quote. It was that locksmith guy.
Yeah.
I wanted to punch him in the face so much. I was like, it's not your house.
Yeah.
It's my house, but it's not only your house. I'm like, I want to punch you in the face. Like, he was so rude. I'm like, how dare you? Like, this girl, she clearly looks like she's devastated. Like, she's like, look at her. Like, her life is crumbling. How dare you say she has no control over whether she can change her life? I'm so mad. I'm so mad.
So then this other quote was also about Kit. Kit had looked forward to writing that invitation every year. She felt powerful doing it, as if she was both brazen and valiant. She was daring him to show up, daring him to show his face around here. She felt vindicated every time he didn't. Every year he ignored that invitation. It renewed her indignation. It was one more good reason to dislike the motherfucker. It was one more reason not to bother worrying if he was okay or if he missed them. It was one more reason she wouldn't have to show up at his funeral, and it felt good. And I was like, damn.
He didn't deserve. Yeah.
And then, let's see, this was on page
I mean, the book doesn't say it, but I hope he died alone. Like, seriously.
This quote was a little bit longer, so I didn't write the whole thing down. When is this? Oh, okay. This was when Carrie Soto showed up.
Oh.
And Nina was processing that. And so Nina's like, Nina, her entire life had been programmed to accept that your father left, accept that your mother is gone, accept that you care for your siblings, accept that the world wants to lust after you, accept. For so long, Nina had believed that was her greatest strength, that she could withstand, that she could endure, that she would accept it all and keep going. It was so foreign to her, the idea of declaring that something was unacceptable. And I don't know, I thought that was like such a powerful realization for Nina in that moment.
Yeah.
The other thing that I don't know if it was ever tied up, what happened to Tareen and like everyone else that got arrested?
Tareen's fiance bailed her out of jail, but I think that was the last thing we heard. Yeah,
like okay.
There's like at the start of the next hour or something like that, where it's like, you know, by time this happened, Tareen was out of prison and blah blah blah. I can't remember the rest.
Oh my god! Because like the last thing I remember is just her slapping the cop and getting arrested, and then I felt like we didn't hear of her again.
You know, I really liked her as a character. For the brief parts that she was in it, I really liked her.
I thought she was like just a very honest and blunt friend to Nina. And Nina needed someone like that, because she was like, this is the thing I hate about you the most, is that you don't live for yourself and you never have. I don't think I was super looking forward to this book when it came out. I don't know if it was the description or the cover. I don't know. It wasn't like at the forefront of my mind. Like I knew I was probably going to read it, but it wasn't something that I like highly anticipated. But I'm glad I read it, and I feel like I enjoyed it more than maybe I thought I would, even though it is Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I do love her writing for whatever reason. Like this topic, or maybe it was the cover. I was like surfers, Malibu. I don't know. It didn't do it for me immediately, but I did enjoy it.
I'm trying to find the part. Oh, here it is. By the time the fire had fully claimed the estate and started rolling down the coastline, Greg had gotten Tareen out of jail. Kit and Casey had tracked down Ricky and Vanessa and bailed them out. Seth's mom had picked him up. Caroline had sprung Bobby. Vaughn's and Bridger's agents had freed them and started responding to reporters asking for comment. Ted's business manager had shown up to help him and Vicky. Tuesday's publicist had come to get her and Raphael, and Wendy's brother had taken her home and already hired her a lawyer.
Okay. I don't know. It must have went by too fast in the audiobook that I didn't pick up on all of that.
Yeah, it is the second to last page of the entire thing. Alrighty. Is there anything else we would like to chat about with this read? Okay. I do agree, though. Before I forget, I do agree with what you were saying, Desiree, about like, I wasn't like, even though I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, I wasn't like excited for this book, but it was really good. I'm really glad that we read it.
Wait, why weren't you excited?
I don't know. Like, I feel like I wasn't. Well, you read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and then you're like, well, nothing can top that. And I wasn't like the biggest fan of Daisy Jones, so I feel like I was coming off of like her last novel, like it was okay. So I wasn't sure about this one.
What did you rate Daisy Jones?
I actually don't remember. I remember before I was trying to get the audiobook for it, like before we were reading it for whatever for book club, and I was like not looking forward to picking it up for some reason. I don't know.
To be completely honest, I think if I had read the synopsis or somebody had described like the Seven Husbands to me, I don't think I would have been too interested either. The reason I ended up reading it was one, because they said she was Cuban American, and then the other one was because people were saying how good it was. Like that was why I read it. It wasn't necessarily because the synopsis. I was like, Seven Husbands, like
that's why I
wanted him.
And then Kat's reaction was the other reason why I read it.
Yeah, remember when we were talking to Donna Desiree and she was like, I haven't read it, and I told her the synopsis does not sound good. It does not do the book justice, but the book is so good. Don't ever go like that's a prime example of do not let the synopsis make your decision for the book.
Let's see. Apparently I gave Daisy Jones a 4, but that was in 2019, so I think I need to reread it.
Yeah, I gave that book a 4 too.
Yeah, I wish I
gave it a 5.
I'm just gonna reread Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones now. I did order though. I ordered Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones in the book of the month hardcover, so they'll all match now that I know that it's gonna be a quartet. So I'm really excited. All right, so I guess on that note we can wrap up our thoughts. I feel like the next time Taylor Jenkins Reid releases a book, I'm not gonna sleep on it like I did this one. Like I'll actually be excited about it. So 4 stars.
4 stars. I feel like with Taylor Jenkins Reid, for me personally, it's hard to rate it high, like a 5, because nothing seems to top Evelyn Hugo, and I know that's maybe not fair to the book that I'm reading. It was really, really good. There's a lot of drama. But there's also a lot of beautiful moments, like the relationship between siblings. There's a lot of moments that make you frustrated, but there's also a lot of moments that really connects you to the characters. I'll highly recommend the book. I felt like Taylor did a really, really good job with creating these characters, because I feel like her books are the prime example that it's a very character driven book. Like the books would be nothing if it not for the way she writes her characters. So I highly recommend it. It is a 4. It's hovering around 4 and a 4.5, but for now it is a 4. Highly recommend it. It's really, really good. It's actually not that long. It's less than 400 pages, so it won't take you that long to read. And with the way there's so much happening, I don't think you'll be bored. So yeah.
I would probably I would definitely recommend it, but I would just say kind of be aware that there is a part 1 and a part 2, and the way it's written gets switched up pretty drastically. But as long as you're prepared for that countdown at the party, like every hour kind of honing in on a different set of characters, then it might not be as disruptive. But I still give it 4 stars, and I again thought the writing was great. I loved just how poignant some of her writing is and the way she describes things. Like it's just very, very powerful, especially the way she described how the kids felt about Mick. Even Mick himself, who was a douche, he was still very, I guess, kind of honest. But there's just, I don't know, there's a lot of characters and you do see their flaws. If you're someone who maybe doesn't really like unlikable characters in their stories, you may have trouble with it, I think, because there's so many of them and they do such shitty things to each other, especially just men in that time period and the way they treated women and stuff. So I don't know, that might be something worth considering, but I still give it 4 stars.
Okay, so for August, I am so excited to read this book, guys. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited. For the month of August, we are going to be reading My Contrary Mary by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows, who also known as the Lady Janies. They did the My Lady Jane trilogy, and now they are doing a series of Mary books, and this one is following Mary, Queen of Scots. And I am so excited to read this with you guys because I have loved all of the other Jane's books that they did. They're so funny, and I'm just really excited. And this cover is so beautiful. We are going to be talking about this on Sunday, August 29th at 6 p.m. Eastern on this channel. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Booktube Chicks. So if anything changes or we need to move live, you will find out there. But I'm so excited to read this with you guys. And on the topic of announcements, Pages and Pals, which is a monthly live read-in where we just sit around for an hour and read over on Kathleen's channel, that is going to be on Saturday, August 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern over on Kathleen's channel, which is linked in the description below. Make sure you check out both of these awesome ladies, both linked down below. Check out all the social medias linked down below. And I think that is all we have for book club this month. So thank you all so much. And we will see you guys next month talking about My Contrary Mary. Bye.
Bye.